Folks, you know all that chatter floating around the internet, the whole, bro, this was literally the worst year ever meme. You know, like, I didn't like the last Star Wars movie. My year is ruined, blah blah blah. But scientists and historians are basically saying, hold up kids, you haven't seen the year 536 yet. There are plenty of contenders for the title of absolute worst year throughout history, but none of them wreck the decades that followed quite like 536 did. Today, we're going to explain why 536 is the last time period you'd ever want to be alive in. But before we floor it, make sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel. Oh, and drop a comment. Let us know which dusty page of history we should blow off in the next video. All right, let's settle this once and for all. 536 was the worst year, period. Our buddy Procopius, a Byzantine historian, was hanging out in Sicily with his boss, the legendary General Belisarius, when he sensed something weird in the air. The guy literally wrote in his diary, "The sun gives forth light without brightness, like the moon during this whole year. It's not an eclipse, it's just weird." So basically it was pitch black outside, like constantly. He wasn't the only one who noticed the sun was throwing a fit that year. Another writer, Michael the Syrian, later said, "The sun went dark for 18 months. It shone for maybe 4 hours a day, and even then it was just a feeble shadow. Everyone thought the sun was broken and would never get fixed. Fruits didn't ripen, and the wine tasted like vinegar." This moody sun situation wasn't a joke. It settled over the globe like a nightmare. For at least a full year in 536. Scientists later cracked the case. Turns out a massive volcano had erupted. That ash cloud wrapped around the whole world. Think Seattle weather, but without the rain, just gloom and ash. And since it ruined the taste of the wine, we're slapping a huge minus point on the year 536 right there. You remember from biology class, plants love the sun. So if you tell a plant no sun allowed for a year, what happens? Crops fail and global famine kicks in. It wasn't just that the plants couldn't catch a tan. The air was freezing. With the sun blocked out, temperatures dropped about 1.5 to 2.5 degrees Celsius. For our American friends, that might not sound like much, but that drop was enough to put the following decades into a deep freeze. Back then, people everywhere, including Ireland, were starving to death. The Irish were so bummed about the situation, they bluntly called the event the bread failure. Don't think the only problem these poor souls had was a dust cloud overhead. Their immune systems were already starving for vitamin D, and guess who walks onto the stage right about then? The plague. Rich or poor, it didn't care. It walked right into the palace, the scoundrel. The symptoms were a real treat. A sore appears on your hand, then you can't walk. Your legs swell up, then those swellings pop. I won't go into details. I don't want to make you sick. If this happened today, there would definitely be a reality show called Dr. Bubo's, Puss Hunters, and it would break rating records. When the outbreak started in Istanbul, Constantinopolis back then, the place started to smell awful. Why? Because they were throwing the dead into the sea and the bodies were floating back up. Funeral planning was non-existent. They were shouting, "Bring out your dead." But the system was in total free-for-all mode. Emperor Justinian ordered, "Just throw the bodies out of the city." "I'm not dead yet." "Did you hear that? He says he's not dead." "Nah, he's dead. Just toss him." "I'm telling you I'm not." Since they made healthy poor folks do the carrying, the disease spread even faster. The only silver lining for Emperor Justinian was that this horrific plague was named after him. The Plague of Justinian. I mean, might be cool for his legacy, but less so for the 50 million people who died. Around 536, the weather in China went nuts too. Yellow dust was falling from the sky by the scoopful. Literal ash. They called it hui. Whether it was volcanic ash or Mother Nature playing a prank, nobody knew. Was that it? Nope. Chinese records mention seeing frost in the middle of summer and snow in August. Imagine snow falling in Miami in July. The crops were obviously in shock. The harvest was trash. Famine started and 70 to 80% of the population perished. Those are insane numbers. Researchers solved the mystery by drilling into glaciers in Iceland and Greenland. There was a massive volcanic event around 536, and if that wasn't enough, volcanoes in Iceland popped off again in 540 and 547. They officially shoved people into the Dark Ages. The sky was coated in ash, and that warm yellow ball, the sun, they were used to seeing just vanished. Some say a mountain blue in El Salvador, others say North America. But the result is this. Combined with the Icelandic eruptions, it kicked off the late antique Little Ice Age. It sounds cute calling it a Little Ice Age, but the reality wasn't cute. They were freezing. Starvation on one side, disease on the other. Basically, unless you were an exploding volcano, it wasn't a good year for anyone. By the 6th century, the Romans had packed their bags and moved east, to Istanbul. Emperor Justinian was trying to return to the glory days of the empire, kind of like a high school grad hanging around the campus in his varsity jacket saying, "Man, we used to be such a great empire." Justinian's general Belisarius did some serious work against the Goths and Vandals, but Justinian couldn't quite hold it together because of internal riots. Add disease and famine on top of war defeats, and the Byzantine Empire never really recovered from that blow. In 541, almost half the population was gone. Once the plague enters the chat, it shows no mercy. It works like a weapon of mass destruction. Historians say that while trying to make Rome great again, plague-infested rats hitched rides on the army's supply wagons and spread everywhere. Talk about shooting yourself in the foot. The wrath of 536 didn't just hit our neck of the woods. It smacked the Moche civilization in Peru, too. These guys were master fishermen and had genius irrigation systems. But the 6th century weather hit their wallets hard. Around that time, a crazy El Niño wave hit, the waters warmed up, and the fish bailed. On top of that, floods came and flattened those beautiful irrigation canals. And boom, there goes another civilization. Tired of listening to people on Twitter, X, whining, "Ugh!" This year was so bad. A Harvard historian named Michael McCormick got his team together and said, "Let's write the book on this scientifically and find out which year was actually the worst." Actually, that wasn't their original goal. They were studying old coins, but the conversation kept coming back to when did we screw up this badly? In ice samples from Switzerland, they found ash from that Icelandic volcano. And yes, the date was exactly 536, proof of the catastrophe that plunged the northern hemisphere into darkness. Although 1998 saw the release of both Armageddon and Deep Impact, and people had to choose which asteroid movie they liked better. That was a tough year too. Our planet left scars from these climate traumas everywhere. Remember, we only have one Earth, folks. Please recycle. Dendrochronologists. Yes, that's a real science, looking at tree rings, not just guessing. Saw that growth stopped in Icelandic trees. When you combine the ice cores and the tree rings, it's officially certified. 536 was the year the world pulled the plug. But don't get too depressed. The story has a happy ending. Sort of. The researchers at Harvard also found when things started to get better. A while later in the ice samples, they found traces of lead. What does that mean? People started mining silver and minting coins again. Ah, capitalism, the lifeblood of us all. Experts say if there's silver, there's money. If there's money, the economy is healing. Moral of the story: no matter how terrible things look, they will eventually get better. I mean, almost always. So, what do you think? Would you want to hop in a time machine and play the ultimate season of Survivor? Fire away in the comments. And while you're at it, check out the other videos on weird history.